Well, Newzroom Africa's Qaanitah is in studio and tells us more.
Yeah, it's been 12 hours of diplomatic response, the presidency coming in strong, saying they're regretting that decision. But let's go now for more reaction on this. We're joined by senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection, Jeenah. Thank you very much for joining us. Was there anything from Ambassador Rasool's comments that stood out for you and warrants this type of action from the US administration?
No, not at all. I mean, even the clip that was played, which is the heart of the complaint against him. And let me say, when Mark Rubio tweeted his declaration of Ebrahim as persona non grata, it was based on an article he read. He clearly hadn't watched the webinar. An article he read written by Joel Pollack, a former South African, was racist, as we all know, writing in a racist publication, Breitbart, who lifted just that little bit from a 2-hour webinar and posted that. What Ebrahim was saying there was he was suggesting or trying to make sense of why the United States has taken the kind of position against South Africa as it has done. He also said things like, South Africa should not antagonize the US, that South Africans should not panic, that this demand in South Africa for the president to send envoys is not necessarily helpful, that diplomacy should be allowed to take its course. All of these things. I mean, he even said, for example, in justifying why South Africa should maintain strong relations with the United States, he pointed to the fact that 80% of our exports to China, our largest trading partner, are raw materials, while 70% of our exports to the United States are manufactured goods. And he asked the question, which one creates more jobs? Clearly playing his role as an ambassador to that country. But Pollack, who, by the way, is campaigning to be the American ambassador to South Africa, Pollack, from his kind of racist background and agenda, chose one particular line or one particular paragraph, didn't put it in context, and presented that as what he called race baiting. So no, I don't believe that that the expulsion is justified.
In his comments to the webinar, Ambassador Rasool said that Trump's disrespect for the current hegemonic order of the world, including institutions like the United Nations and the G20, were probably, white supremacism underlying that. That's not a comment that he made by himself. I think we've heard similar sentiments from South African officials that there is this disrespect for global order. What do you think?
No, that disrespect is clear. I mean, Trump and his people in his cabinet say those same things. And they believe that they have good reasons for why they disrespect the global order. We might not agree with those reasons, but they actually believe that that is what they want to do. Yeah. That they want to disrespect these global institutions. So, that's not speculation. That's not kind of pulling things out of a hat or baiting the US or anything. This is stated by the administration as its official policy. Look at the way it has dealt with the issue of Ukraine. Look at the way it deals with the United Nations. All of these, what Ebrahim called, not a term I would use, the hegemonic global structure, what people in the United States would have called the rules-based order, particularly post the mid 20th century. The Trump administration seeks, and the first one did as well, seeks to upturn all of that very deliberately. Yeah. And as I say, they have an agenda, and they're clear about that agenda for doing so.
Naeem, it seems unprecedented, this decision to expel an ambassador based on a single article. What are the consequences for South Africa?
Well, I think that's what the presidency and DIRCO are weighing up this morning. Look, I don't think that there's necessarily any worse consequences than if Ebrahim remained and the webinar did not happen. I don't think that this, I think that there's a targeting of him in particular because of the kinds of things he said. South Africa can, of course, now refuse to accept an American ambassador of their choosing. South Africa can decide not to appoint another ambassador to the US for the next 4 years. I very much doubt that either of those two things will happen. From a South African perspective, South African government perspective, the relationship with the United States is important. And having an ambassador and a good ambassador there will assist those relations in a very difficult time when not having relations will, from the government's perspective, be harmful to South Africa. So I don't think that South Africa's response is going to be an antagonistic one, which is exactly the kind of thing that Ebrahim called for, not to have antagonism to the US. I don't think it'll be an antagonistic one. I don't think South Africa is going to go overboard to appease the US, as the president said in his speech. That we will not be bullied, etc. But at the same time, South Africa is not going to take the first step to escalate the situation.
And finally, is there perhaps some sort of sentiment as to why the US administration and the Trump administration has zoomed in on South Africa in such an adversarial way, and why there has been these consistent, scrutiny on South Africa and its positions?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One of them, and the most obvious perhaps, is that Trump is surrounded by people like Elon Musk. In fact, Elon Musk is sometimes referred to as the real president. And Elon Musk is a former South African from a racist family. And, his recent utterances seem to suggest that he himself is a racist, going along with his fascist salute, etc. And Elon Musk also has a business eye on South Africa, which is not very happy about how South Africa is dealing with that. His Starlink operations. So he certainly would want to promote harsher actions against South Africa. Secondly, there's this campaign that's been going on since Trump's first presidency, that it seems that the Trump White House has bought into, this idea of there being a white genocide in South Africa. And that leads to the third point, which is a point that Ambassador Rasool made in the webinar. And that is that the Trump administration has set itself up as a kind of defender or promoter of white victimhood and a defender of white rights, both in the US and globally. Hence their support for people like Nigel Farage in the UK, support for the AFD right-wing party in Germany, etc. And so the consequence of that for South Africa is their support for the kind of right-wing agenda, white right-wing agenda and movement here, presenting the United States as a defender of whites everywhere.
Thank you very much. That was senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection, Jeenah. Back to you, Maseh Chaba.